Illinois was one of the surprise teams of 2024. How about 2025? What will their record projection look like? We're going to break it down for you and look at the schedule. A schedule that, I'll be honest with you, does tend to make me believe that Illinois could have another really good year in 2025. Let's break down this 2025 schedule for Illinois, and here is that full schedule. You can see, first, let's just look at the non-conference. They've got Western Illinois at Duke and Western Michigan. So a pretty easy non-conference. Duke, I don't expect to be great next year. It's a respectable opponent. It is a Power 4 team. They did go, I believe, 9-3 last year, and that game is on the road. So that's not going to be one of those that you can just, show up and win. It'll be a game, but Duke, I don't think will be near Illinois' level in 2025. I just don't. So that should be a fairly easy win for Illinois. And then, of course, you got a couple of other Group of Five, or a FCS and a Group of Five team that they should take care of business in those games. So home and away, how does that look? You've got Western Illinois, Western Michigan, and then you've got 5 home games in the Big Ten. You've got USC, Ohio State, Rutgers, Maryland, and Northwestern. So 5 games at home, and then you've got 4 games on the road in the Big Ten. So Duke is on the road, of course, non-conference, and then Indiana, Purdue, Washington, and Wisconsin on the road. Maybe it gives you a shot against teams like USC and Ohio State. Maybe they can win those games, and you feel pretty good about Rutgers, Maryland, and Northwestern at home. And then on the road, Wisconsin, Washington could be tricky games. Indiana figures to be pretty good again. Purdue, who knows? I mean, they were awful last year. So, those are not easy wins there on the road. But I think the thing that jumps out to me is who you avoid. They avoid Oregon. They avoid Penn State. They avoid Michigan. This is a pretty favorable schedule. Now, if Indiana's a top 10 team again, and you got Ohio State and Indiana, you do have a couple of really tough games there. But overall, I would say this works out pretty well for Illinois in the Big Ten. You look at who they added and who they lost. So they removed Michigan, Michigan State, Minnesota, Nebraska, Oregon, and Penn State. They added Indiana, Maryland, Ohio State, USC, Washington, and Wisconsin. You don't have to play Michigan this year. You don't have to play a Minnesota team that was pretty good last year. Nebraska, a team on the rise. Oregon and Penn State, 2 of the top teams in the conference. And like I said, Indiana and Ohio State adding those opponents, and possibly USC. I'm not sure how good USC is going to be. I think it's a good trade here. It is definitely a good trade. And remember, this is a team that went 9-3 last year. So 9-3, and then you get an easier schedule. Who knows? Maybe Illinois could be in that conversation for the Big Ten championship game. All right, so they'll start with Western Illinois on August 30th at home. Then it'll be on the road at Duke on September 6th. And then it's Western Michigan at home on September 13th. So all 3 non-conference games in the first 3 weeks. A big road game there on September 20th on the road at Indiana. This is actually a pretty tough stretch. I would say this is by far the toughest stretch from Indiana down to Ohio State. You've got Indiana on the road. You've got USC at home September 27th. And then it's Purdue on the road October 4th and Ohio State on October 11th. Again, that's a pretty tough stretch, because when you look at the rest of the schedule, Illinois has a real shot to win their final 5 games. So if they can get through the first 7 games with 1 or 2 losses, again, maybe they lose to Indiana on the road, or they lose to USC and they lose to Ohio State. But if you can get through those games with just 2 losses, then Illinois is going to be in the playoff conversation, again, if they can win out. Now, I don't know if with this schedule, if that's going to be enough to get them into the playoff at 10-2, but we'll see. So they get the bye week. Their first bye week is pretty late. It's actually October 18th. So I don't really see this much where teams got 7 games before their first bye week. So that's why I say that stretch is going to be tough from Indiana to Ohio State. Then they'll play 2 games. They'll play Washington on the road on October 25th, and they'll play Rutgers at home on November 1st. 2 games, and then another bye week. So it is kind of weird how their bye weeks fall. But you like having that first one where it is, because it's after a big game against Ohio State, and it's before you have to go travel out west to Washington. So that one is in a good spot. The second bye week, maybe you'd like to have that maybe 1 week later and have Rutgers, Maryland at home back-to-back, and have that before a road game at Wisconsin. I don't know, but yeah, Maryland right there on November 15th. Then it is a road game at Wisconsin, November 22nd, and Northwestern on the 29th. So we're talking about some tough road games. Yes, Wisconsin and Washington and Indiana. I'm looking at those 3 games. Tricky games there, but a lot of games at home for them. USC and Ohio State at home, Rutgers, Maryland. A lot of these games where they're going to be a pretty good favorite at home. So it could come down to those road games. If they can go on the road and win, and let's say they lose to Ohio State and lose somewhere else, again, this is a team that could be in that playoff conversation and possibly in the mix for a Big Ten championship game berth. So how does this stack up with the other teams in the Big Ten? Well, this is actually one of the easiest schedules in conference play. You look at their opponents from last year in Big Ten play. So the opponents in 2025, this is their records from last season, 33-48, so a 41% winning percentage. That is near the bottom. Only Michigan has a lower percentage there. And I think it's actually maybe even easier than what this number suggests, because I think some of those teams may not be quite as good as they were last year, especially like if you look at Indiana. Maybe they're not quite as good. So, yeah, I think this schedule sets up really well for Illinois, and I think they are a real dark horse to possibly get to the Big Ten championship and maybe even the college football playoff. Before we get to the record projection, just wanted to let all of you know we do have an Illinois channel, brand new show starting this week. So we do have a show there on our Illinois channel. So if you're an Illinois fan, go check it out and subscribe today. What will Illinois' record be in 2025? We're going to give you this very early projection in this video. So let's look first back at some of the other projections. Now, apparently I did not do a video for Illinois in 21 and 22. I couldn't find anything. I guess those 2 years, maybe I didn't do every power team, but you look at the last 2 years. So last season, the projection was 5-7. They went 9-3. The year before, the projection was 7-5. They went 5-7. And just look at the records from the past 4 years for Illinois. Up and down, up and down. This is one of the hardest teams to predict. Every year I struggle to predict what Illinois is going to look like. Again, 5-7, down year, then up to 8-4, then down to 5-7, then up to 9-3. But with this schedule, I mean, it is hard. It is hard for me to see this team dropping off and going like 5-7 or 6-6. I don't see that happening. But we'll see what the numbers say with our projected record formula. And keep in mind, these are not official predictions. There is no human element to this. It's simply based off of numbers, based off of our tier rankings. So this is, again, the schedule, and this is the scale that we use. Games that stay in the white, those are going to be your 50-50 games. So Illinois is a Tier 2 team. If they play a Tier 3 team, that game will be in the purple. It'll be in the 61-70% range. But if that game is on the road, it drops to a 50-50 game, and that's kind of the way this works. Again, you can look at this as point spreads potentially. Again, this is not the way the formula is made to work, but usually it kind of comes out this way. The 50-50 games are games where the spreads will probably be about 3, 4, 5 points. 61-70 games where the spreads would be closer to a touchdown, 7, 8, 9 points. And then the blue, that'll be the games where it's a double-digit spread more than likely. And then 80 or above 80, those are the games where the spreads it's going to be big. It's going to be 20-plus points, and you can almost count those as guaranteed wins. And for our formula, we do count those as wins. And Illinois' got a bunch of them. They've got 6 games that are considered almost guaranteed wins. Now, Illinois might not be a Tier 2 team. Maybe they're not as good as we're projecting right now. And maybe these other teams, Rutgers, Maryland, Northwestern, maybe they bounce back and have a better year. I would say probably at least one of them will. But again, with our tier rankings, this is how it came out. This is what the formula gave us. 6 easy wins. 6 almost guaranteed wins, which means worst case scenario for Illinois is a bowl game at 6-6. So this is, again, a very favorable schedule with these 6 easy matchups. Western Illinois, Western Michigan, Purdue, although that one is on the road. But then you got Rutgers, Maryland, and Northwestern. So like those games, Rutgers, Maryland, Northwestern, those would be in the blue if they were on the road. But because they're at home, they are in the green. And then we do have one blue game. That's Duke. Duke is on the road. If that was at home, that would actually be one in the green as well. But yeah, Duke, I think Illinois should be double-digit favorites in that game. Probably 13, 14 points if I had to guess. So they should win that game, but of course no guarantees. And then you go to the games in the purple, you got 3 of those, USC, Washington, and Wisconsin. So USC is a Tier 3 team in our ranking. So Illinois is 2, USC is 3. Washington and Wisconsin are Tier 4 teams, but because those games are on the road, That's why you see those games in the purple. So again, I think Illinois is probably going to be about a touchdown favorite in these games. USC might be closer to a 50-50 game, but I'll say Illinois will be favored by 5 or 6 points in that one. Washington, it's probably 7-ish maybe. In Wisconsin, maybe 8, but who knows with those games on the road. And again, we don't know. This is based off a lot of last season, so we only moved teams up and down one tier from last year. You could not move more than one tier, so some of these teams are going to be much different. They're going to be a lot better. Some might be a lot worse, but again, based off of that formula, these games do come out in the purple. Again, me personally, I think these games all might be a little closer to that 50-50 range, but not with our formula. And then you've got Indiana and Ohio State. Those are going to be your 50-50 games. So Indiana is another tier 2 team. That's one that could really go either way. And then you've got Ohio State at home. That's a tier 1 team, but because you get that game at home, that's why it is a 50-50 game. Now, I don't really think the spread for that game will be 3 or 4 points. I think Ohio State's probably favored by at least a touchdown. But like I said, with our formula, that's how it comes out. So what's the projection for Illinois? This is very interesting. This team is projected to go 10-2. Yes, 10-2. This is almost like a projected playoff team. And the reason why, again, if you split with Indiana and Ohio State, then you got USC, Washington, and Wisconsin. Maybe you lose one of those games, but you win the other 2 because you're going to be favored in all 3. That's how you get to 10-2. So it could actually happen. I mean, Illinois could very well go 10-2. Now, if they lose to Indiana and Ohio State, I don't know that they win every other game, and that drops you to 9-3 or potentially even 8-4. But if they can split those games, again, if they can get through that Ohio State game with only 1 loss, I think Illinois is in great shape to get to 10-2 and potentially get to the college football playoff. So yeah, watch out for Illinois. Their schedule sets up in a way that makes them a real threat to get to the college football playoff in 2025. And just a quick reminder, memberships are now available. You can sign up today, get early access to videos, priority reply to comments, much more. Check it out. And again, leave your comments for Illinois. How do you think their season's going to go? Let me know.